Hello, welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. In this video, we will be discussing the Accelerator Theory. Before starting, let me give you an intro of myself. I am working as the head in charge in Department of Economics in one of the reputed colleges, aided colleges which come under the University of Kerala. So, I am a PhD holder and also have secured a first rank in both BA Economics and MA Economics. Also, I have qualified for UGC NET thrice and UGC JRF twice in economics. So, we have already discussed the Keynesian theory of multiplier, especially the investment multiplier. Those who have not watched the videos which deal with the investment multiplier, please go and watch those videos. I have done 2 separate videos on investment multiplier. You can watch it. So I'll be providing the link which deal with the same. Having said so, let's come back to the theory of accelerator. So there are 2 fundamental macroeconomic principles, the multiplier and the accelerator. It was Keynes who developed the concept of investment multiplier, but he ignored the effects of induced investment to an extent, we can say it so. And but when you come to the case of Samuelson and all, he says that in the long run the effect of an increase in the spending world not stop with the effect of an increase in spending world. As Keynes has pointed out, for this higher income, this in turn have implication for other parts of the economy. So it says that actually the Keynes is a person who always favored short run, and he always says that he is always in favor of short run economic analysis, and he's not that concerned about the long run economic analysis. But Samuelson says that we have to look into the multiple expansion of income with respect to long run as well. So an increase in national output or income will lead to increase in investment. So this is not the induced kind of investment. So in this case, we have to understand that this induced kind of investment depends on your income size, and as a result it is known as induced investment, because your investment is induced by your income, okay, or your investment is induced by your income in the sense that it was out of your higher income that you are investing more. So in reality we can observe that a business firm's decision to make new investment depends upon the rate of sales. That means that on the other hand it can be said it can be considered as a demand for the product, and this is mainly because the demand for capital goods is considered to be a derived demand. Now anything which increase the consumer demand, such as increase in the per capita income, will be all beneficial to capital goods which capital goods producing industry. Or you can say that aggregate investment depends not only on the absolute level of output but also on the rate of change in national income or output. We can consider an example. Let us suppose that an investment of 100 crore is made, and this leads to increase in the national income of 500 crore. And in this case, with multiple increase in income, the business firms might very well decide to proceed with another round of increased investment, and as a result they could supply the output needed by an economy in which national income has just increased. This is a process of induced investment. That means that it depends upon the change in output or sales or income. So this induced investment depends upon your national income. Now coming to the principle of accelerator, you can see that the principle shows a relationship between increase in total output and the additional investment spending that occurs due to output increase. In short, acceleration principle explains why the increase in national income often results in a more than proportionate increase in investment spending, and why amount of investment studying depends not on the absolute level of business activity but on whether that level is increasing or decreasing. So a change in national income it will lead to change in investment. So here your income is leading to investment. However, a small change in national income or output leads to accelerated change in investment. Okay, and the principle of accelerator is developed by J.M. Clark, and he says that accelerated effect on investment of a small change in demand for output of consumption goods. So this is how he has defined the concept of accelerator. And the implications of induced investment is very much clear when we study the accelerator principle, and this refers to the relationship between increase in total output and additional investment spending that occurs due to such an output increase. In short run, acceleration principle explains why increase in national income often results in more than proportionate increase in investment spending, and why the amount of investments depends not on the absolute level of business activity but on whether that level is increasing or decreasing. Okay, so just come back to the assumptions of accelerator principle. The first assumption says that the investment has both autonomous and induced components. Then it says that, or it assumes that investment depends not on absolute level of output but on the rate of increase in your total demand. Thirdly, if rate of increase is growing, you can see that investment spending will increase and vice versa. And the accelerator principle also emphasizes the extreme volatility of investment as compared to other components of aggregate demand, because it suggests that any percentage increase in aggregate demand would result in much larger percentage increase in investment spending. Now coming to the illustration of the principle of accelerator, you have to understand that in producing output, firms need to use capital, and that allows most profitable operation of the firm. The principle of accelerator is based on the idea that an increase in demand for consumer goods produces a far greater increase in demand for capital goods, demand for producer or capital goods. Okay, so here the net investment is the addition to the stock of capital, but it's a stock of capital needs to grow only if the level of output or sales increases. The relationship between capital and output illustrates this point. For example, if for every 1 rupee of output in the economy requires 50 paise worth of capital, the capital output ratio would be 2. And this ky by is the value of capital K, which is needed to produce the given level of output divided by the value of output Y. And if the capital output ratio it remains steady, then the capital must increase for the economy to produce more output. And with a capital output ratio of 2, for example, rupees 10 crores increase in output will require 20 crores increase in capital. And as a result of the investment increase in capital, investment must also depend upon the rate of increase in your output. With a fixed capital output ratio of 2, the relationship between investment and output can be written as I is equal to K by Y into delta Y. This equation illustrates the principle of accelerator and that accelerate. Okay. And also you have to understand that the investment will increase only if the national income or output increases. If output is high but fails to increase in a particular year, then investment will fall to 0. If output declines, then what happens is that there will be net disinvestment as business firms will allow their capital stock to depreciate without any replacement happening. And thus investment in an economy depends not only on the level of income but also on how fast the economy, how fast your output is rising or falling. Okay, now accelerated principle of investment is that investment which depends upon the growth of output, and this implies that investment is something which is unstable. These kind of things are illustrated in the table given below. You can understand that investment will fall simply because output grows at a slower rate. For investment just to remain stable, output growth must be constant rate. So you can understand all these things from this table, and the table illustrates that how accelerator principle works. Now coming to the case of accelerator, we have assumed that the capital output ratio is uh, 2:1. So 2 units of capital are required to produce 1 unit of output, and the name accelerator principle is given since net investment depends upon the acceleration or deceleration of your output. Now coming to the importance of the theory of accelerator, you can see that the theory has been looked at by Samuelson, and he says that should sales now drop below a certain level, gross investment would drop away or to nothing for a long time. In fact, the firm might want to disinvestment by selling of some of its machinery, and in this case you can see that on the contrary what happens is that a tremendous increase in investment spending is possible as a result of a moderate increase in consumption sales. According to the acceleration principle, consumption has to keep on increasing in order for your investment to stand still. Now, the concept of accelerator, it has been used in order to make certain predictions in the arena of economics. Let's go to these kinds of predictions. So first prediction is that investment spending will fluctuate more sharply than the demand for consumer goods. The second prediction is that investment spending can start to decline even when sales are rising at a slower pace. Now, these two phenomena contain actually the seeds of business cycles, and these together can explain why a private enterprise economy is inherently unstable. When an economy gradually reaches its capacity level of output, then a continued increase in aggregate demand will bring about an accelerated increase in investment spending. Even before capacity output is reached, the continuation of that condition can set acceleration principle in motion. And the enlarged induced investment spending adds to aggregate effective demand, and this causes a further rise in national income through multiplier effect. However, we can see that like multiplier, the accelerator can work in both the directions. We have seen that multiplier work in both direct manner and reverse direction. So like that, in both these directions, accelerator too works. Thus, once a rise in aggregate demand begins to slacken, the operation of acceleration principle can cause investment spending to decline. This in turn will slow the process of economic growth, and which further can set the stage for general downturn of business activity. Now coming to certain qualification, you can see that the acceleration principle only provides a partial explanation of investment demand, and investment, as we all know, it's governed by present and future profit. And future profit, when we come to future profit, this is something which is identified as the main rationale for investment, and this figure extensively in the valuation of investment project, and it seems that any analysis of investment demand must include both a profit and the acceleration principle in it. So such a qualification will have to be introduced in the simple acceleration theory, and these are first lags. When we say lags, we have to understand that investment lags behind the change in income. So this is something that is understood when we go for planned investment and all. Planned investment for the third quarter is based on the actual change in the first and second quarters rather than the forecast change between the second and third quarters. Secondly is business outlook. If general business outlook is optimistic, then businesses will be more inclined to think that an output increase will be permanent, so that out of this expectation business will come up. Otherwise, if business expectations is pessimistic, then there will be less inclination to invest. Then we have capacity limits, which says that when a rapid rise in output leads to large planned investment, there are often physical limits to rate at which actually investment can take place, and industries which produce capital goods themselves have capacity limitation. Now coming into the case of profile, we can see that profits are considered to be a factor in determination of investment, and investment usually varies directly with profit. Now coming to the role of inventories, we can see that business investment is something that depends upon the profit prospects and rate of interest at which money is borrowed. And investment, it actually varies proportionately with the sales and output, and thus fits a simple accelerator model. Now coming to the criticism of accelerator theory, we can see that it has been pointed out by Calder that we cannot assume a constant value to accelerator throughout the trade cycle, because we know the trade cycle means the upswing and downswing are there, so we cannot give a safe value of this capital output ratio throughout. So if some machines are lying idle, then we have to use them before rushing for new equipment, right? Also, if we expect if entrepreneurs expect rise in demand, then what happens is that they will try to meet it by overworking the existing machinery rather than installing a new plant. Thus, in the theory of accelerator, it has been assumed that there is no excess capacity existing. In other words, we could see that it has been assumed that no machines are lying idle. Okay. If there had been excess capacity, then what happens is that supply of goods would be increased with the existing equipment and the accelerator would not come into play. Further, in accelerator principle, you can see that it is assumed that the capital goods industries, there exists some surplus productive capacity. If there is no excess capacity in machine making industries, increased demand for machines caused by a requirement for additional output would not lead to increase in supply of machines. In the absence of supply of machine, what happens is that investment cannot increase in short run, and thus it is assumed that in accelerator theory, machine making industry is capable of increasing its output for the time being at least. The supply can be increased by reducing stock of the finished machines by working some extra shifts, but shocks cannot be reduced below zero, because shocks, it is something that is not predictable. It can happen anytime. Only when the demand has increased permanently will the entrepreneurs find it worthwhile to increase investment in machine making industries. We have to understand that the size of the accelerator, it does not remain constant over time, but we have assumed that the capital output ratio remains constant, right? But that is not so in the real case. Its value will be affected by the business calculation regarding the profitability of installing new plants to make machines on the basis of their probable working life. And also it's assumed that the demand for machines will remain stable in the future. However, in spite of above limitations of acceleration principle, it points out an important force which causes economic fluctuations. There have been many economists like Hicks, Samuelson, Dusenberry, who have combined the multiplier and also they have this multiplier has been combined with satisfactory theory of business cycles in order to explain the market economies. So that's all for multiplier. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe this channel for more videos. You are welcome to my Telegram group and Telegram channel to discuss and clarify your doubts regarding the topics which are to be covered for this exam. Thank you.